history, so Rez and others can better understand if today's climate behavior is normal or something very different.
Changes that we've seen in the past decade are much too large, much too pronounced now to be simply explained away as just part of a natural cycle. There's something much more fundamental hitting on the climate system now.
In the last 100 years, the Earth's temperature has climbed 1 degree. Could that single degree impact the climate in such dramatic ways? Climate is far from constant. It operates like a complicated machine with many moving parts. Even a slight change in just one of those parts, temperature, sunlight, ocean circulation, can have a domino effect on all the others. So if the temperature goes up or down, it can ripple through the whole system.
To put it into perspective, the depths of the ice ages were separated from the period today by only a few degrees in the global average temperature.
The ice ages, according to biologist Stephen Bacala, were climate changes brought on by natural cycles. Approximately every 100,000 years, the Earth's orbit becomes slightly more elliptical, taking us further from the sun. When that coincides with other cycles, such as periods when the planet tilts away from the sun, it can cool things down.
Those changes trigger a set of mechanisms that cause there to be more or less heat put to different parts of the planet.
It doesn't take much to spawn an ice age, just a small drop in the amount of sunlight reaching the Earth. So had New York City existed 160,000 years ago, it would have been on the edge of an ice pack over a mile high. 30,000 years later, it would have been under 20 feet of water. What we need to know, says Dr. Bacala, is that climate change is not always slow or gradual.
There's a class of almost instantaneous climate change that I call monsters behind the door. I call them monsters because were they to occur today, they would be catastrophic.
Monsters that many scientists fear may be unleashed in the coming decades. January 1, 2006. Across southern Australia, the summer heat blasts its way into the record books. In the capital of Sydney, temperatures top 111 degrees. By the end of January, the most destructive brush fires in 20 years raged throughout the country, killing 9 people. After the hottest year on record, the new year brings only more of the same.
Yeah, I mean, look how hot this is. This is just amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
It's hot country.
In New South Wales, Fire Chief Russell Rees inspects the damage left by a wildfire during what should be Australia's wet season. The severity of the devastation is surprising and alarming. After 30 years in the fire service, Rees is fighting an enemy he no longer recognizes.
Bushfires are part of the Australian phenomenon. They've been around for millions of years. What's changing is how the fires behave, the frequency of the fires, and the way that they burn and the things that can change during those fires.
After a decade of drought, these grassy hillsides have become the most combustible kind of fuel, deprived of moisture for years. And there's something else that Rees has noticed, something that tells him a greater force is at work than just simply a dry spell.
It's also changing the short-term weather patterns, giving us this volatility, this spikes in the weather that is causing us to go from calm days to very, very blow-up fire condition days, just out of the blue.
Extreme heat. It's not just happening in Australia.
To the weather now, and no surprise, it is awful.
Chicago, 1995. Temperatures over 100 degrees kill 739 people in only 5 days. And in Europe, 2003, more than 30,000 perish when a record-breaking heat wave grips the continent. Of the 21 hottest years on record, 20 have occurred since 1980. There are some people saying, look, the long history of the planet, it's always had spikes, up and down.
Climate has changed throughout Earth's history for natural reasons. The difference is that in the future, climate change will come on much faster than any change in the history of civilization.
How can experts such as Dr. Michael Oppenheimer be so confident that this current warm-up is unusual? The reason can be found back in the ice core laboratory in Boulder. In layer after layer, going back hundreds of thousands of years, scientists can measure tiny samples of atmospheric gases that have been trapped and preserved. And there's one gas in particular that follows the rise and fall of temperature almost perfectly. When temperatures go up, there is more of it. When temperatures go down, there is less. That gas is carbon dioxide, CO2. And in analysis after analysis, Serez and his team find something alarming.
We find carbon dioxide concentrations in the atmosphere today are higher than anything we've seen in the past 600,000 years. This is telling us that present-day climate is very unusual.
CO2, carbon dioxide, is not pollution. In fact, it's essential to life on Earth as we know it. Animals exhale it, plants and trees breathe it in. And carbon dioxide plays another vital role on this planet.
It's one of the gases in our atmosphere that helps keep the Earth warm. When the sun's energy hits the Earth, some of it is absorbed and some reflected back into space. CO2 traps more of that heat energy and holds it in the atmosphere.
That's the greenhouse effect, and it's a good thing, because without that natural greenhouse effect, Earth would be about 60 degrees Fahrenheit cooler than it is now. It would be a frozen desert, and humanity would never have developed.
All the greenhouse gases together, CO2, methane, water vapor, nitrous oxide, make up only 1% of our atmosphere. Not much. But the climate history has shown how even slight changes in the amount of those gases, particularly carbon dioxide, can swing the Earth's climate from one extreme to another. And as scientists have discovered, never since human beings first walked the Earth have carbon dioxide levels been this high. The question is, why?